Greetings, chess fans. The penultimate day of the 58th International Bill Chess Festival main event, GMT Masters and Challengers, is officially over. And today we saw quite a bit of amazing action in both Masters and Challengers. First and foremost, in the Challengers, we already have the winner, but in the Masters, we had both games being decisive. Both games were played in really amazing fashion, and that's why this particular game will be selected as the game of the day, and that is Vladimir Fedoseev against Volodar Murzin. So what we are going to do, we are going to focus on not every single move, but the critical moments of the game, because for the first part of the game, it was having a pretty slow character. Here, Fedoseev decided to go for some sort of an exchange Slav variation, which has served him well previously against Volodar. This e3 move seems a bit slow, but White has some concrete ideas, like knight e5, bishop e5, and here the big decision, knight x on d7, giving White the bishop pair. After the opening, the position was pretty quiet. Both players were carrying out their plans. Black was slowly setting up a very solid position, like knight e4, bishop e1. Of course, Fedoseev wanted to keep the bishop pair on the board. In the meantime, Volodar was trying to organize some counterplay at a c file. Bishop d3, knight e6. So again, here White was slowly but carefully trying to make some progress. But one thing was becoming pretty apparent, that Fedoseev, while Fedoseev was slowly improving his position, Murzin was rejecting making big decisions. Like at some point he could have played e5, tried to open up the position, but he probably felt he's going to play in favor for White. So we're now going to fast forward a bit to the critical moment when Fedoseev played f3, queen e1, rook c1. As you can see, there's a lot of maneuvering moves, bishop b1, knight c3, and e4. So this was the moment when Murzin probably started to feel that White is slowly but carefully taking over the game, and the best move was knight x on d4, e takes on d5. The position opens up, but Black is doing pretty all right. Instead, here came a series of difficult to explain moves. So here Murzin played knight b6, allowing White to play knight e2, and you can still open up the position with d takes on e4. Then came knight b4. White played bishop c3, stopping any counterplay at the c file, and the knights came back. So with these series of moves, Murzin essentially wasted 4 tempi, and now this gave Fedoseev a very impressive attack at the king set. So g4 was played, f4, bishop b4, bishop d2, there was a trade, queen takes on d2, queen e7, and f5. At this moment here, Fedoseev had a commanding lead, not only in the position, but also in the clock. At the moment, he had 90 minutes versus 3 for Black, who was also in a time scramble. Black played queen h4 because one of the big ideas for White is to play f6, queen f8, maybe rook f3, rook h3, try to deliver the mate on h7, so queen h4 did make sense. But now came f6. That engine marks is a mistake, but the big idea is try to hunt the black queen. So Black going to play queen x on g4. There's going to be queen h6, queen g7, and mate to follow. But here Black had an opportunity to complicate matters with knight e5, d takes, and knight e5. White still has the better position, but this was a very difficult decision to make in a time scramble. So that's why Murzin played h6, allowing White to play knight g1. Still, knight e5 is a move, but of course, having only less than 2 minutes on the clock for Black, this was a basically impossible decision to make. So Black played knight f8, queen g2, and now here Fedoseev was going after the black queen. So the threat is knight f3, queen g3, h4, and trap the queen. So Murzin played queen g5, knight f3, queen f4. This is move 39. And everybody were watching this game felt that Fedoseev is this close to win the game. During the commentary, we thought that it made sense to continue with knight g1, queen g5, leave the game to the next time control, get extra half an hour on the clock, and figure things out. And here, according to a chess engine, the strongest continuation would have been queen g3, h5, because queen g3 would be coming with h4 threat to trap the queen. Knight h3 is a very powerful idea, and black's position just collapses. Because queen takes on g4, white plays queen e3, queen h6 is incoming, rook g1 is incoming, knight g5 also is a huge threat, so black is completely busted. What Fedoseev did also kind of made sense. He played h4, the 40th move, so he was going for knight g5, rook f3, trap the queen. Black played queen e3, the only defense. He was trying to escape with a queen. So Fedoseev played rook d3 and shut the door, rook e4, and here came the mistake. So white is still winning, according to an engine here, and white can just play some quiet positional moves, maybe like rook d1, queen a3, queen g3, drive out the queen. Let's say black will play king h7, rook e1, queen c3, and just continue positionally squeeze black at the king side. The attack looks very promising with h5 incoming, with the bishop on b1, pinning the pawn on g6. But instead, Fedoseev was focusing on winning the queen. So he played queen g1. His idea was to trap the queen. Notice that the pawn on d4 is defended 3 times by the rook, the knight, and the queen. And this must have been the reason why he felt the black queen is trapped. However, after knight b4, we think that Fedoseev simply missed from afar that rook e3, queen e4 is not a queen trap, because after knight e2 he forgot the pawn on d4 no longer is defended. So that's why here he, after some thought, he played rook d1, and now the game was completely unclear. Black is threatened to play rook c3, pin the knight on f3, with all 3 results possible. White played rook f2, rook c3 came the move, queen g2, and here Murzin burned a lot of time to pick up the only idea he has in the position, which is knight e3, bishop e4, knight takes on g2. This is again a very, very complex line, but it's forced. King takes on g2, d takes on e4, and here Fedoseev made a pretty serious mistake. He played knight e1. I did not really like this move during the online commentary because it does stop black from playing rook c2, but now the knight on e1 is really out of the game. So I was thinking, why should I play knight g1 instead, hoping for some knight e2, knight g3, knight e4. Black would have played g5 with the idea to bring the knight on g6 and f4. h5 shuts the knight away from the game, so knight e7 is the alternative route. Here, I most likely would have to play rook e2, knight b6, rook e4, knight e5. White has an unpleasant position because black is incredibly active here, even being down a pawn, but the position ultimately should be holdable. Instead, Fedoseev played knight e1, and after g5, he decided not to play h5. Probably he could have played h takes on g6, h takes on g5, h takes on g5, rook e2, rook e4, with a terrible position but not losing. But instead he played rook e2, probably missing the black can include g takes on h4, and not knight g6, but knight h7, and suddenly black is completely in charge, threatening to play knight g5. White played king f2, rook g3, which is a decent move according to Chess Engine. Maybe the more precise move would have been knight g5 being accurate and then played rook g3. But the point here is that after rook g3, Fedoseev came up with a brilliant defense. He played the unexpected g5, which definitely was missed by Murzin. The point is knight takes on g5, white recaptures the pawn on h4, and rook on g3 becomes vulnerable. So black had to take with a pawn, but now the knight on h7 is disconnected from the game. So white played here rook d3. According to an engine, the best move was rook c2 check. For example, rook c2 check, knight takes on c2, rook takes on d3. It still looks pretty unclear with the knight on h7 out of the game, and Murzin was just not sure, even if he saw this variation. So he continued with rook takes on d3, played rook c3, and here in the hindsight, probably the best shot for white was to play knight c5 and hope for some d5, e6 pushes. Fedoseev played knight e1. Rook g3 is the best move because white's idea is to play rook g4, knight f3 to kill these pawns, so rook g4 is necessary. And here again, Fedoseev showed why he is such a resilient defender. He played knight f3, knight f8, and a really great practical idea a4. So his idea was that these pawns are not rolling forward. He's going to play a5, and at the right moment, as soon as this knight is not on f8, play d5, rook b4, and complicate the game. So the game continued with knight g6. Here, Merzan was in a very serious time scramble. a5 was played. King f8 is a mistake, but pretty human move. Also notice that if he would have played a knight f4, there's a very nice resource. Knight x on h4, g x on h4, the knight on f4 drops, and you would have to see this line pretty far. For example, knight d3, of course, just drops the rook on g3, but in some similar lines, the position would get really tricky. So what happened here is that Merzan played king f8. Now d5 was white's choice. E takes on d5, rook b4, and it could have been felt that now this feels like a three-result game, especially considering that black is in a very serious time scramble. Knight f4 was played. E6 was not the move. I think it was here. Yeah, e6 is not the move because there's a fork on d3, so rook takes on b7 is a move. But according to an engine, here Fedoseev missed the opportunity. He could have played knight takes on h4. The point is, after knight e3 check, king takes on g3, the point is maybe he missed actually g takes on h4 is a move because white can take with the rook at h4, so this doesn't work. And after knight x on b4, knight f3, white would have escaped, or maybe even could have played 4 more. So knight x on h4 was a big miss. So instead, Fedoseev played rook takes on b7, black played king g8, e6 seeking for some counterplay with f takes on e6, for example, f takes on e6, white plays b4, b5, a6, a7, and it's not clear even who plays for the win. So, of course, Merzan played knight x on e6, and this is where Fedoseev made the final blunder. He played knight e5. So knight e5 was a very normal aggressive move, targeting the pawn on f7. Instead, he should have played b4, objectively with a losing position, but still with a lot of tricks. But the point here, after knight e5, he simply missed from afar that black can play knight c5, and the intended rook takes on f7 does not work because of not of knight e4 check, but knight e3. And after knight e3, I think he simply forgot that after knight takes on d3, the king on f7 is grabbing the white rook. And that's why after this move, knight c5, he played rook a7, black played knight e3, traded the knights, and this was essentially game over. The game wrapped after a couple of moves. Black rearranged his king, finally put it on the safe square. Black showed up, very impressive technique, and after king g4, Fedoseev had to resign. So there was a very, very crazy game, which essentially cost Fedoseev not only 4 points, but also a lead in the overall rankings, because after the penultimate round in the Masters tournaments, Aravind is the new leader. He outplayed Salem Saleh in a crushing fashion with the black color. Now he leads the tournament with 27 points. Salem and Fedoseev share the second and third place with 24.5 points. And theoretically tomorrow in the final round, either of these 3 players can still be crowned as the winners of the Masters tournament. In the meantime, Boldar Merzan has a theoretical chance to qualify for top 3. In the challengers, we have already a winner. His name is Nicolas Theodorou, because both games in the tournament finished in a draw, and this allowed Nicolas to keep his 5-point lead over Aram Jacobian and thus securing the victory in the tournament. The action is going to continue tomorrow with the final round of the 58th International Bill Chess Festival. As usual, the live coverage is going to start at 2 p.m. Central European Summer Time. So who is going to take it down, the Masters tournament? Is it going to be Aravind, Vladimir Fedoseev, or Salem Saleh? You're going to have to see it yourself. And if you want to see it live, tune in at 2 p.m. Central European Time for one more final round. Stay tuned.